Excuse me. Hi, Wendy. Hope you're doing well. Hi, people. Hope you're all doing really well. You've had a good day. I needed a break from the document, so I decided just to come on, do a little bit of a live and see if anyone's got any questions. I'm just being blown away by what I'm finding constantly. Doing some research, more research on Julian Assange at the moment, which is linking in with so many other things. Joining all of the dots is what it's all about, but you know, I need to get it to a point where I can just get the evidence out and then decide what I'm going to be doing next. So if anyone's got any questions, I'm not going to be reading anything at the moment, so if you've got any questions, please put it on the comments now and I'll try and answer it. Everything you're seeing going on is going to be to do with this, the Jeffrey Epstein files, etc. It's obviously hiding something much more. And they're obviously under a lot of pressure to release something in relation to everything that's going on. The trouble is they are wanting to obviously provide the or control the agenda moving forward, whereas what should be happening is the innocents, who are the majority of the people controlling the agenda moving forward. I have a question, please. Yep. Are both Capita and DWP both involved? Yes, 100%. Pretty much every government department is involved in this. Okay, you've got to look, you know, it's linked to the taxation system. It's worth trillions. The government's been set up deliberately around this system of fraud. It's quite obvious. And what was the other one? Capita is very important. So Capita links right the way through my research. And Capita actually is almost immediately a link to the Hampstead child abuse inquiry involving Ricky Dearman. Now, whether that is a deception, the Ricky Dearman thing, or not, I don't know. I mean, it's appearing as though it's real. The two children that did the interview saying that they were abused and then made to decapitate babies. I'm sorry to be graphic, but this is what they said. You know, we have to presume it's real at the moment, but it links in massively to everything that I'm exposing. Yeah, and when you come in from Ricky Dearman, straight away on the incorporation document for the company that he was part of, that name connects to my former friend and associate in Dorset Police very, very quickly. It also makes links to, I mean, everything's so quickly connected now. We've got a fairly small number of companies and therefore a small number of people that are basically in charge of or running the whole deception, but they've got, you know, on the scale of things, it's a small number of people. I mean, now I was thinking the other day actually when I was can't remember where I was walking from, but I was thinking how many people are actually involved in this. Well, you'll have millions and millions of people involved in the fraud side of things. You've got 6 million Freemasons. And it looks as though they're unfortunately they're certainly all compromised by it, let's put it that way. And of course all of their friends and family and how they've networked out. So with the Freemason connection, I think you're talking 10 times that. I think you're going to be talking about 60 million people involved in the Freemason network, if you like, around the world. I don't think that's actually an overestimation when you think of the Friends being involved and backhanders and, you know, all of this stuff sort of going on. How many are actually involved in the crimes against the children? You're going to be talking a lot. You're going to be talking a lot. Certainly, when you're talking of the trouble is, you see, you know, this stems from the sex trade going back a long time, and the sex trade has escalated into more sinister activity. Obviously, started with sexual immorality with predominantly men, but of course women as well, and prostitution. And then, of course, with this system of fraud, you've had the gentlemen's clubs, the men-only clubs linking into the Freemasons and other secret societies. And from that, you then obviously have the involvement with alcohol and then drugs. And of course, then this removes their rationality. They start doing things that they wouldn't normally, leading into sexual activity that becomes into, criminal sexual activity then. Women and men getting younger, etc., and then eventually potentially leading into paedophilia. And then, once people start going down that route, it's very difficult to come back from it when you're involved in, not difficult to come back from it, but they are, in their mind, they're so deep in this now, a lot of people, they don't really know how to get away from it. They don't know how to come away from it. They don't feel as though they can be truthful about what they've been part of, because possibly they feel that their lives are at risk, and there may be evidence that's been acquired on, well, there's bound to be evidence acquired on a lot of people. Now, whether the actual, torture and the blood of the children is as big a problem as it looks, I don't know, because, there's bound to be an element of it in all of this, and it 100% links into this international government fraud that I'm exposing, the laundering of money in relation to the serious crimes against children. So anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent there. How many of the files have actually been released? Isn't it like only a few % of them? I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't really trust what they're releasing, because I know it's way bigger than what they're telling everybody in those files. They're not talking about the links into the Vatican and the prophecies in all of this. They're not talking about on the mainstream media the blood of the children in all of this and the torture of the children. Now I'm seeing it on social media, but the trouble is you can't even rely on mainstream. But once they actually disclose something on mainstream, you can at least sort of come to the conclusion, okay, well, now the government's admitting this element of what they're part of. But they're not doing that. They're not disclosing the full amount, are they? The full side of things. So I don't know how many have actually been released, to be honest with you. But of course, look, if they're involved in major international fraud, they're not going to be worried. They're not going to think twice about holding information back or even falsifying information, sending out in relation to all of this. They're not going to care about that. They're involved in the biggest financial corruptive system ever imaginable, linking in with the religious establishments in the Vatican, going back hundreds of years, the control of all information. They're not going to care about whether they've released all the files or whether they're lying in some of it or they're manipulating some of the information. They don't care. The whole court system is illegal because of this, because of the forgery behind it. All the solicitors involved in criminal organisations, the barristers. Just going through the comments. Yeah, you're right. These poor kids, if there's any truth or chance that this criminal network is causing suffering to the children as much as it seems, then, someone put a comment on my YouTube and they said, what's happened to humanity? Why isn't everyone in outrage? Why isn't everybody going and, they didn't say going and doing arrests, but this is what I'm thinking. Why aren't people going and arresting people now? It's the first thing I'd be doing now. If I didn't have potentially a warrant out for my arrest because I didn't turn up at court, I'd be straight there arresting the solicitors now. That's what I would be doing. I've got to think tactically and carefully about what I do next, because I'm the only one producing the evidence, exposing, it seems, the entire truth in this, or a good idea of what the entire truth is through the Company's House records. Hi, Julie. Thank you, Gary. It isn't legal. It isn't legal what they're doing to me right now. I believe it's a final attack on my family. I'm sorry to hear that, Julie. It's there's loads and loads of people apparently being targeted in relation to this. Interestingly, I'm not really, when you think about it. When you think about it, they haven't really done a lot to me. They're making me feel as though something might happen to me. But the kids were told they lied. I believe it was true. yeah, it's certainly the way those two children in the Hampstead case came across. It certainly didn't seem as though they were lying or it was rehearsed to me. The big thing is, though, is why you've got John Wedger exposing the international crime, or the crimes against children, suddenly started praying for me, and he's actually linked to the Hampstead Child Abuse Inquiry via the Knights Foundation, which links into the main companies in the fraud, and it also connects to Julian Assange via, what's her name, Belinda McKenzie, who was the McKenzie Friends founder. So, you know, there's and also Sabine McNeill connects in with that. And Sabine McNeill was supposedly the person that was helping the children and was imprisoned for helping the children and exposing the parents involved. But Sabine McNeill is connected to the main companies in the fraud, which means it links back into Ricky Dearman, into the international criminal network. So it's possible that the Hampstead thing was a deception. It's possible. We have to consider that. But hi, Brian. I hope you're doing well. Gary, is Sean Atwood, Ron Swanson not platforming you anymore? What happened? Okay, so I was doing a few shows with Ron. Was doing a show one evening, and I was about to drop a massive bombshell, and Ron said, "Let's go over to my other channel." So I went on the other channel with him, and he just started playing DJ music, and I was like, "What is this all about? Why aren't we talking about what we were talking about? Why aren't I giving the evidence?" There was hardly any following on it. And then I was going to do another one, and they took my WhatsApp out, so I couldn't contact him to be able to arrange the because it was that day that we were doing one. Couldn't actually arrange it to I was going to postpone it a little bit. Anyway, long story short, I'd already found a record that appears to be Sean Atwood linking straight into the international government fraud. Now, that was quite a while ago I found that, which could be one of the reasons why Sean is not himself interviewing me and he's leaving it to Ron. The other concern now is, to be honest with you, I haven't really done any more checks on either of them. And I haven't done any more shows because of those reasons, really. And I was a little bit concerned about the last show that I did. He has contacted me, though. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I got a last contact from him and talked about going on again. So I might do that. But the thing is, they need to be open to the deception in all of this. Now, he's apparently talking a lot about Virginia Giffrey, is it, or whatever her surname is. Well, I've got now overwhelming evidence that's suggesting she's massively implicated in it, as well as Farmer, can't remember her first name, who was one of the first people that made the allegations against Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, that they're also implicated in this. Now, this also suggests that the whole Jeffrey Epstein file thing may be a deception to hide something else, which is what I sort of knew that was going to be the case anyway, but this supports it even more, that actually what they're doing is they're manipulating the information they have and using it for an agenda that they're not telling everybody about. So I don't trust it all. I think it's all, I think there's a much bigger deception going on in all of this. Now, I've found critical connections into Julian Assange from Donald Trump, linking into all of the collider technology. Now, you've also got this Antarctic evidence that I've recently found out about, where it seems from my research that there's some sort of device under the ice at Antarctica that they've got that links in with CERN. It links in with the Vatican. So then you're coming back to the falsified prophecies side of things in all of this, because the evidence suggests that technology, whether it's a deception or not, it seems as though it's possible of causing a fake tribulation on Earth, a physical fake tribulation on Earth. So I think what they're possibly doing is trying to hide the bigger connections into the Vatican and everything that I'm exposing, but they're being forced to disclose something so that you start trusting in them a little bit, so they can maintain an element of control. Because obviously the fact that they're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein files, a lot of people will be like, well, good, they're coming out with some of the truth and what's really been going on. So you're then going to wait and hold off on doing a strategy that actually needs to stop this, because you'll be watching it and thinking, oh, well, wonder what they're going to do about these people. You know, what are they going to release next? I think what it is an element of ensuring it gives them more time to control their agenda going forward, when really what you should all be doing now is going out and arresting these people. That is what should be happening. All right, they don't give them any more time. Right, it's very dangerous with all of the evidence I've got if they're being given more time. And don't forget, you've got this information that I mentioned last night, whether it's true or not, but we have to consider it is, with the evidence that I'm finding, that they're going to activate a depopulation event on the 1st of March involving the cell towers. Now, I don't know that's true. Could be a deception. They said that there was a leaked depopulation report from 2017 that said by the end of 2025, the population in the United Kingdom will be reduced by 70, I think it was 71 or 77% or something like that, down from 66 million to 14 million. As far as I'm aware, that didn't happen. But of course, we've now got this other information coming out, and I've been now finding this evidence in relation to the removal of lead from paint back in 1992, when the Catholic Church became a legal entity, and when the Companies House records started to become electronic, and that there was an exemption from paint being used on older buildings, from the lead paint being used on old buildings. In other words, the people at the head of this, living in manor houses and estate houses, are able to use lead paint on their properties because there's an exemption. Everyone else wouldn't have that protection from lead paint since 1992 in the United Kingdom, 1978 I think it was in the US, and 1909 in France when they banned the lead paint. So, you know, everybody needs to be starting to do more. Stop waiting for everybody else to do something. I can't form groups. I need to carry on at the moment doing what I'm doing, producing the evidence and trying to get it out to as many people as I can. That's what I need to do at the moment. I can't go and meet people, but you can. You can form groups. You can form arrest groups. You can go and start arresting the solicitors first of all. See how the police deal with it. All right, you've got the evidence. My previous documents have been sent out and is evidence alone to prove what's going on. You've now got the evidence of them telling you that children are being at least being abused as a result of high-profile individuals within governments linking into Jeffrey Epstein. Why are we not doing more about this, everyone? You know? Now, my previous document has more than enough evidence for people to be going out and starting arresting people and testing that water and see what the police are going to be doing before we need to start thinking of arresting the police. But before we do that, let's give them a chance. Let's expose them in that opportunity, in that chance, see what they do, test the water, apply the pressure to the system and see what happens. The longer you leave that from happening, you are giving them time for their agenda. And if they are really going to activate cell towers and they are really harmful, then you could all be in serious trouble. I'm not trying to scare everybody, but with the evidence that we've got, we have to consider that that's a real possibility. Now, in their mind, they could be thinking, before we activate a depopulation event, let's tell them what we've been doing to the children to some extent. Let's release these files, see if they're going to do anything. If they're not, they don't deserve to live anyway, and we'll feel better about getting rid of all of these people as part of a depopulation. That's something you have to consider in this, all right? That's something you consider. It may be that a lot of what they're saying is a deception, trying to make you think that something's been happening to test what you're going to do, see if you're going to do anything. If not, they'll feel better about getting rid of millions of people. I'm just saying that's something you have to consider in all of this. They need to see that you have a moral conscience. Remember, you've got religious establishment connections, people involved in the religious establishments involved in all of this deception, that means they could be looking at bringing about a judgment upon humanity. Obviously, whatever they're doing, it's evil, but, in their mind, it may be that they're testing the water and seeing what they should do. Do a backflip. When will the government fall? Not until the people do anything. Not until the people do anything. Any of you that think just changing a leader without changing the system, you're lost. I mean, it's farcical. You have to have a change in the system now. It's blatantly obvious. And I know what initially it needs to be on a transitional basis. It doesn't matter who you have in a position of an MP or Prime Minister or your councillor now. Until you change the system, you cannot trust any of them. It's really quite simple. They're all involved in this. 3 million, I think, and another 3 million to come. Oh, I didn't see your previous comment. Sorry, I didn't know what that was in relation to. You might have been talking to somebody else. Yeah, I needed a break from the document. I was looking at it earlier and it was just like, oh my goodness, I just need a break. So that's why I've just come on to do it live. They will release what suits them. Most from Op Paperclip went to that department. Yeah, you're right, Joe. They will. Look, they control all information, the control of all of information. They're not going to release something that they can't control the outcome of what happens from that information. Now, it's possible that they're starting to have a bit of a think of, okay, well, what if, there really is a creator, and what if there is a consequence to us in carrying on, and therefore we have to release some of the truth as to what's been going on. But it's not enough until they come out and they say they've had a criminal financial system in place that has deliberately facilitated the laundering of money in relation to conflicts, terrorism, crimes against children. Nothing's going to be good enough. We have to have that reset to truth. As hard as that's going to be for them, that's the only way. They need to be the sacrifice through the truth. There is no other way from this. I think like I said the last couple of nights, I think what we're looking at is an inversion of what happened or supposedly happened with Christ. Christ sacrificed himself for the sin of mankind. I think what's going to end up happening and what's going to need to happen is these people are going to need to sacrifice themselves by coming out with the truth. And I don't mean literally kill themselves or end up being harmed. I mean face the consequences of their criminal network by disclosing the full truth and therefore making that sacrifice. Why don't victims come out and disclose the truth? Well, many victims are, but don't forget they control all of the information. They control all social media. You may have many, many people trying to come out with it, but they're just suppressing all of the evidence. They're suppressing it because they control all social media. Literally, all social media platforms are controlled by this fraud. All of them. They've had 700 years at least to start controlling all of the information back in the Reformation. Started right back then. Okay, and they've managed to get to a point where they've manipulated and controlled all of that information to such an extent now. Now, some of it is slipping through, some of the truth, and that's possibly their karmic, universal karmic element of this, where they feel as though they've got to allow a little bit of truth to come through from people. Otherwise, they know that they're, but they are. I mean, they're cheats. They're cheats. They're cheating in all of this. That's why they get rid of videos. It's cheating. They stop people's phones from working. They hack people's devices that are actually trying to expose the truth, which is what this is all about, the truth. We need the truth. Victims come out. What am I talking about? A system of international government fraud that links to all of the world's problems, including the Epstein files. I've noticed a lot of truth is coming to the surface since you've been exposing them, Gary. Thanks, Carla. It'll definitely be having a huge impact, but they're still not doing what's right. They're still not doing what's right. They're trying to get dog trackers to find my location. They're entering my tent. They're probably going to try and poison me or whatever. these people, I mean, I understand they're in a very difficult position, you know, but that's not my fault. That's not my fault that they decided to set up a criminal network against all of humanity. It's not your fault. You know, the only way out of this is the truth. The only way. I'm new here. What are you exposing? Hopefully I've answered that. Is Corbyn involved? Yes, he is. Jeremy Corbyn's involved. 100%. Yeah, they're all involved. All of the politicians. I've already checked Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, massively implicated. They made a big song and dance about the stepdad, didn't they, when he did nothing? I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, but yeah, I'm not too sure of that side of things. Every area of that case I looked at, it linked into the fraud, including the judge in the case, the head teacher of the school, the Tortoise magazine or media company that was involved, all linked into this. It's the international government fraud. Someone's put those kids were telling the truth. Certainly sounded like it, but we do have to consider. Obviously, we have the opinion that it seemed as though they did, but we do have to consider they weren't. We have to consider that it could be a deception because of all of the other evidence that's now being acquired. Hi Gary, I heard a few years ago that everyone's bank account numbers, all registration numbers we ever done online and national insurance numbers is channeled back to government banking through HMRC. There will be no confidentiality in anything. All right, they're involved in major organised crime. I've now found further evidence to the Cray twins now linking into this. And when I went in from today, this was quite an interesting bit of research. So it looks like the Crays were involved in the infiltration of the royal family, first of all, and that looks as though that was instructed potentially by the Vatican in a worldwide infiltration over all of this, stemming from the takeover of the Vatican City in 1870, and then the Albert Pike letter in 1871, written to Mazzini, the head of the Illuminati, setting out the Three World War deception. So anyway, the Cray twins, it looks as though they were involved or given the task to infiltrate the royal family in the United Kingdom. And today I was researching a guy that he was that the Cray twins were linked to. I forgot, Leslie Holt, and Leslie Holt was a burglar, and he has connections to Lord Boothby. Now, I'd already found connections to the Crays and Lord Boothby in the previous research coming in from the response to the COVID outbreak, which led into the AIDS companies, because obviously you had the same people supposedly working on the vaccines that were working on the AIDS pandemic as well. And it went into the Crays from the research of that as well. And when I then went into this Leslie Holt today, it linked to the United Nations. So they're all involved in money laundering through the United Nations, through the through NATO. Sorry, it linked to NATO, but the United Nations I've already connected to NATO, obviously, and international money laundering as well. So this is where the international conflict deception comes into this, where they'll be laundering money through fake defense contracts, through international deceptive conflicts. This is why you've got all world leaders are involved in this. Remember, goes back centuries. So they've positioned everybody in advance all around the world, set about these fake conflicts, but a lot of it will probably be happening. They're actually probably, letting people kill each other as part of the deception, and then laundering money through those contracts in relation to those conflicts. I pray that people aren't being killed, but with the amount of evidence, it seems as though they are, which means you've got seriously evil people running the world in all of this. And then to Citibank into the US. All of the banks are interlinked. Every single bank is involved in this international fraud. All of them, worldwide. All right, remember, it's linked to the taxation system and the formation of governments. So they realised what they could do is exploit, victimise, and funnel money through from their populations. Watching kids giving evidence about the evil doing in Hampstead. Yeah, it's quite harrowing interviews. If you haven't seen it, then they go into quite a lot of detail. Again, we do have to consider, because of the evidence I found, that it may be staged as a deception. We have to consider that, I'm sorry to say, because of the evidence. But they basically, in this interview, they go into a lot of detail about what happened. They were raped, okay, they claimed, by their father and several other parents linked to a school and a church. And then they were made to help decapitate babies that had been drugged by a nurse and then drink the baby's blood. So yeah, quite harrowing, quite graphic. It was from, I've forgotten the year, was it 2000? I want to say 2014, I think. Could be wrong, someone will know on here. I've got it written down. But now obviously what that did is created a stage to link, because what I've done from my evidence is I've linked CERN, the company that actually runs the Large Hadron Collider, almost directly into the Hampstead Child Abuse Inquiry, which links the blood of the tortured children, supposedly, to CERN. It's all connected so quickly, and this CERN connects to Peter Mandelson. Not Peter Mandelson. Yeah, Peter Mandelson, sorry. Who all of the stuff that we're seeing on the news about with Jeffrey Epstein, he was the guy that was, it was Peter Mandelson, wasn't it? Who, because of being led to believe, because of the emails that he sent to Jeffrey Epstein in 2019, is he resigned, and he links to CERN Limited, a company called CERN Limited, extremely quickly. You're talking 2 or 3 companies away, and that links almost also with Ricky Dearman from that company to it as well. So you've got, it's very quickly all connected. Thank you for all you're doing, Gary. Keep going till this stops. Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. No, I really appreciate your comments. It means a lot to me, you know, just the fact that, you know, a thank you does go a long way, and it is very much appreciated, more than anyone knows. So thank you so much. But, you know, I'm just doing what I can only see I need to do. I can't ignore this. I can't do nothing about it. You know, if I think that there's a chance that children are suffering, then I've got to be willing to put everything on the line for that. So that's what I'm doing. And then, you know, once I've got these documents out, then I'll be having a very careful think about what I do next. I just want to get these the documents out. It's just so time consuming. Ron knows full well I used to watch him years ago exposing the dark web. Hi Gary, what is the Nazi deception about? Okay, so the Reformation was in the 13th century when they started to form the governments, and the religious establishments were involved. Government means mind control, but they had a German company called Gutenbergs that had a new technology back then, which obviously wouldn't be cables and power, but it was able to print quickly religious material and disseminate that around the world. So that was when Germany became involved with the religious establishments and the formation of governments back in the Reformation, and that began, it looks like, that began the control of the information. Okay, then before I knew about that, I found a company called Lechen. It's not Liechtenstein. I can't remember. It's a German company that was originally incorporated in founded in was it 1856? Now 1856 is the same year that the Church of Satan started to use the Baphomet symbol, linking in with their organization. It's also the same year that which actually becomes relevant for evidence that I've acquired via Elon Musk, that the Solent University in Southampton in Hampshire, which is where Deborah Fleming was prominent as with the NHS, also was founded and began. Okay, and this then links into research I found from Elon Musk later, which it looks like they've tried to remove, but I've screenshotted that evidence and secured it. So this German company, it was heavily linked to the control of information before World War One. Okay, and it links with the Maxwells. I've connected it to the Maxwells, i.e. Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell and their family. And I've actually just found another connection the other day to Kevin Maxwell, who is Ghislaine's brother, a really critical connection in actually to some recent evidence. So that company, that German company, was involved in worldwide educational establishments. It was also involved in and linked to publishing, and obviously the control of information. We know Robert Maxwell was massively linked to the media side of things. He was, which is no coincidence, he supposedly died by falling from his yacht in 1991, which is an absolutely critical year in all of this. It's when David Icke came out and said the world was going to be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis, which ties in with the falsified prophecies I think this is really all about. 1991 is when David Icke is linked to the intelligence agencies, by the way, from at least 2 angles that I've come in from, which explains why he refused to have an interview with me. And this company, so this German company, before World War One, remember, this is critical, because you also had, before World War One, certain intelligence agencies were formed, okay, linking to the worldwide intelligence agencies. So this enabled them to start controlling the information and the intelligence leading up to their plan of the 3 World War deception. All right, now it's already, remember, you've already got the German company back in the Reformation, and now you've got this link into Hitler and the Nazi regime. Well, Hitler connects, according to the research, connects to Walt Disney. He also links to Werner von Braun, who was linked to Operation Paperclip, where Werner von Braun, the father of NASA, 1 letter short of Satan, everybody, was brought from the Nazi regime over to America as part of Operation Paperclip. And the supposed, again, we have to consider that a lot of this is a deception. We have to, because we've got to keep thinking deception. If so, why would it be a deception? Now, you've got to keep coming back, keep thinking prophecies, keep thinking Vatican. What's their end game? It's a spiritually conclusive agenda. It's got to be, with all of this evidence and what I'm finding. Okay, so you keep linking it back to a prophecy in the religious establishments and thinking about why they would be doing certain things and what's happening in the movements and all of the things we're seeing. It gives you a sort of idea as to potentially where we're heading in all of this, sort of. Okay, so this company, anyway, so you had if we go back to 1870, because I'm just still focusing on this question about the Nazi deception. So in 1870, according to the information, the Vatican was infiltrated and taken over, and they imprisoned in the Vatican City the popes. And this was the year before the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini. Okay, but 1870, that same year, was also the year that Commerce Bank was founded, a German bank. So we have another link to Germany, and that bank was the first German organization, certainly the first German bank, I can't remember if it's the first German organization or just the first German bank, to have a branch in New York City, okay, which becomes relevant to the World Trade Center disaster element, because this is all connected to the World Trade Center disaster 100%. So 1870, infiltration of the Vatican. That involved the Freemasons, looks like, okay, because in 1871 you had a letter that appears to have been written by Albert Pike, a high-level occultist Freemason who started the Scottish Rites Freemasons, okay, which is, they've got the main oldest active Freemason lodges in Edinburgh in Scotland. I think Edinburgh is going to be very important in all of this historically, potentially the real Jerusalem in all of this, potentially, and I say that with reason. So 1870, infiltration. 1871, letter written by Albert Pike to Mazzini, who was the head of the Illuminati, linking him with the Vatican. And that letter set out the 3 World War deceptions, okay, in 1871. It's no coincidence it was 100 years before the World Economic Forum began, okay, in 1971. It's no coincidence. It's no coincidence it was the year before that that Charles became the Prince of Wales in 1969, which is when NASA was involved in the landing, supposed landing on the moon. NASA, one letter short of Satan. And NASA was founded in 1958, which is the year that Charles was initiated to become the Prince of Wales. And then he actually was officially inaugurated, or whatever you call it, to become a Prince of Wales in 1969, 2 years before the formation of the World Economic Forum. So anyway, this letter was written setting out appears a 3 World War deception, and it was placed, this document supposedly was placed, according to the information, in the British Museum library, and then they removed it the year that I was born from the library in 1977 and denied all knowledge of it ever existing, according to the information I have. Now obviously I don't know how true that is, but what I can tell you is through the Company's House records it supports all of this, what I'm telling you, through the research. I've now found connections at key times to the British Museum Company coming in from certain angles, including linking in with the blood of the children, including linking in with Jeffrey Epstein, including linking in with, I think it was where was it coming in? I can't remember without looking at the document, because the document's quite big now. I think it's like 1,000, nearly 1,300 pages now. I keep saying words. So that control of the Nazi deception enabled them to funnel money through the World War deception into their agenda, and how it links in with the falsified prophecies and into the collider technology and the Vatican. They are using the Bible as a playbook. Yeah, they're definitely using the Bible to some extent. Like I said in the last couple of nights, it makes sense to me now with what this lady was saying, and forgive me, I don't know her name, on TikTok, and she was saying that what happened was, she said everything that we're seeing is Christianity. It's Christians behind it. And I was thinking, right, okay. She said what happened was Jesus came down to earth to prevent what we are seeing now. Back at that time, he was then supposedly crucified. And then they maybe carried on with what they were doing. And it's, if you look at the Old Testament, it talks a lot about the, from what I've been told, about the sacrificing of children and the killing of babies and children and all of this. You've also got just whilst I'm thinking about it, you've got the statue in Bern in Switzerland, which is actually quite relevant, where I've done research on, of a figure actually eating babies. And this actually becomes very relevant in the research that I've done, tying into Switzerland, which is obviously where the Large Hadron Collider is. And it was from that I found the evidence of an organisation called the Keller Group that was involved in creating, and I've actually linked it again back into some evidence today or yesterday. They created the control panel for the Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Geneva, the Keller Group, and that ties in to who they positioned as the new, they're not called a prime minister, I don't think, of Switzerland. I can't remember the name, but she's got a double-barreled surname, Keller something, now running the head of Switzerland. In 2025, they positioned her. No talk of the tunnels, acid or concrete. Is the Winston Churchill deceit? He's definitely involved in it, but I haven't specifically gone into and done research about him. But they all seem to be in on it. This is going back a very long way, everybody. Think Reformation 700 years ago, forming the control of information and the governments. All right, that gives them 700 years at least to have positioned everybody. And because it's linked to the taxation system, they realised worth trillions. They've set the police up around it. They've set the military up around it. The councils, the government, all set up around the international government fraud, giving them the ability for a small number of people on the scale of things to control everything to suit them, okay, to fit their needs and not the needs of the many. Many people are still ignorant and others just waking up a little. Hi, Patricia. Hope you're doing well. Thanks very much for joining me. Hi, Vanessa. Hope you're well. Devo is outraged. Oh, there's a few. Many people are self-centered. That's why. Yeah, well, you know, what I say to anybody that's not doing anything with this, prepare to be judged. Because this is going to come to an end one way or another. And if you're on the wrong side of this, you're probably facing the most unbelievable consequences you could ever imagine. So everyone really needs to start doing something. Someone said to me, what we need is to get everyone together in one place, as many people. No, that's the last thing we need. That's the last thing you need. There's no point getting large groups protesting and all of this. No point. What you need to do, in my opinion, is you need to do the strategy I'm suggesting. You need to take part in citizens' arrests, give the police the chance through the exposure to do the right thing. All right, that doesn't require large amounts of people. It's peaceful, legal. It will apply the maximum pressure to the system because they'll realise, you see, they'll realise, oh dear, the people are actually going to start arresting people if we don't do anything. And if they're doing it peacefully and legally without actually holding on to people and wrestling people to the floor and risking an assault charge, how do we deal with that? This is what they'll be thinking. How do we deal with this? We can't impose martial law. You know, and don't forget, a lot of the frontline police will not know the truth as to the large agenda in all of this. They won't know about it. Most of them are probably going to have, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I now suspect most of them have been involved in some element of the corruption financially through the taxation system. You know, I hope that most of them aren't involved in any crimes against children. There will be some of them, of course. But certainly, I think most of them will not know about the falsified prophetic agenda in all of this, which will put all of their children, their family, everybody at risk. So that's why they need to get behind this evidence and to do the right thing now. So they need to assist the people in the arrests. Where do I add any nominees' names for the depopulation scheme? Where do I add my nominees' names for the depopulation scheme? Sorry, I don't know what you mean by nominees. Just having a look, trying to find. I try not to get too involved in people's. Don't know how to answer people. I think if you click on their symbol, yeah, you. Oh, that's pin. I think you click on the message or their symbol. I know you. I'm not great on here myself, to be honest with you. Hi, Abel. Ably Living? Is it? Sorry, I'm probably reading that completely wrong. What do you think of Advance UK? I've done a little bit of research and their members are linked to the fraud. So no good. None of them are any good. None of these parties, all right, are any good unless they're talking about the Companies House fraud. Then we can start trusting. Until anyone starts speaking about this, I'm sorry, I know that it's going to be difficult for them. And a lot of people are going to be in uproar once it comes out. But it needs to be done. It's the only way forward. You can't have a system of crime in place that motivates the lies against humanity. You're never going to resolve this. Never going to resolve it. Unless you have a system based on transparency. We are the creators. It's not an external creator. I think there is, personally, because I mean, I don't want to get, obviously everyone's entitled to their opinion, but for me, the only explanation for me is there is a creator. Because if we start saying we are the creators, we make mistakes all of the time. We're fallible all of the time. We constantly become irrational. We do things that are wrong, and we cannot let that ego and that pride be us. We need to put I believe we need to put our praise towards something away from us, because let's face it, we got our moral conscience from somewhere. That wasn't from my mum and dad that gave me my moral conscience, all right, to the extent that I've got it. That was given to me through the rationality and through the moral conscience of my creation. So I give the praise to the creator for giving me that ability, the discernment between right and wrong, or at least try my best to discern between right and wrong and try and focus on that narrow path of righteousness as best as we can. It's very difficult to be completely righteous, obviously, but so I think it's very dangerous if we start saying we are gods. That's very likely what those people think of themselves. That's very likely why these people believe they can do what they are doing to humanity, because they think they are the gods, possibly. Very dangerous, I believe. Is it only solicitors that you can take the documents to? Look, I think you need to be strategic on this. The documents, I think, are almost, I think we're almost past the point of any documents now. I think arrests need to take place. But if you're going to do anything, if you're not going to do anything else, then the documents are better than nothing. And I would suggest that you focus on premises that we can actually then go and arrest the people afterwards. So therefore, it has to be a location where there's not thousands of staff, where there's not, it's got to be practical, strategic. And that is why I advise the solicitors, because the solicitors are massively running the international government fraud. Okay, they're a huge part of it. This is why they're linked to the Temple Bar. All right, a Temple Bar that was actually a bar set up I think it was Fleet Street in London. And this actually ties in with the research of Sweeney Todd and potentially children being put in pies right back in the day when they used to go and sit in this bar, the Temple Bar in London. I was in a live sharing your mess. Oh, why's my torch gone off? Oh, I'm going to have to put my phone on charge. Bear with me. Running out of power. Oh, I won't let me put my torch on now. That's weird. Why won't it let me do that? Okay. Where's my other torch? Okay. What was I saying? Comes to questions. Alive, sharing your message, and someone told me to stop and said you're working with the police or something. I was so confused. So you got to remember, so many people have been positioned. Look, you've got 700 years of planning at least. That means they've set people up in positions ready for this moment to control the agenda moving forward. So they've prepared for the likes of me coming forward with the truth of the evidence of their criminal system, and they will try and say things. Of course, I'm not working for the police. I wouldn't be saying that all the police are involved, would I? The heads of the police need to be arrested, but we can't strategically do that yet. But you know, the longer you leave this, the more serious this is going to become. The more serious this is going to become, and you're giving them the time to control things moving forward. I don't work for the police. Obviously, I don't. It's quite clear I don't. I'm not a Freemason, never have been. I don't work for any government organisations. They're all involved. All the intelligence agencies, every government around the world, certainly the most evolved countries, developed countries. Rupert Lowe, yes, he's implicated. I've already checked. I haven't gone into depth, but yes, cannot be trusted. Links to the fraud. Has not working with the police anymore for a few years now. Yes, thanks for answering that, Patricia. Yeah, so I resigned from the police in 2018. Anyone that says otherwise, they're lying, and basically they're worried. Anyone what you need to do is ask, why are they not talking about the Companies House fraud? Anyone that's not talking about it, you can't trust them. It's as simple as that. It's worth trillions. It's linked to the sex trade, the drug trade, and the prophetic agenda in all of this. So you'll have multiple people that are multiple different types of people that are going to be compromised by this. Someone's put 25 years too late. It's never too late, is it? You know, if everyone was to follow this strategy now, it would end it. It would end it. Yeah, I haven't even really looked at any of my emails. Please forgive me. I need to get this document done. I needed a break from it. That's why I've come on this live, because I've been trying to do the document today. And in the tent, my hands get so cold, okay, that my hands go numb and I can't actually even do my document sometimes. So it's not as easy as sitting at a desk at a computer. I don't have that luxury. So sometimes I can go into locations and do it. But sometimes I'm in my tent and it's a lot harder to do it. Oh, I'll be back. I just need to go out for a minute. Hold on a second. I'll be back in a few minutes.